Day 15, and what I want to talk about today is leveling up. All right, here we go. So the whole goal when I started this was to learn to be comfortable in front of a camera, learn to talk to the lens without staring at it and, freaking people out. And I think I've accomplished my goal. I wouldn't consider myself a big gamer, but I have gamed quite a bit. And I love Minecraft, by the way, just so you know. Back in the day, we actually had to, play role-playing games on the tabletop. The game Dungeons and Dragons and Pathfinder. Pathfinder didn't exist back then, but Dungeons and Dragons, I started off with the red box. The whole idea that you could play a character in this fantasy realm, but you could take that character from level 1, gain experience, level 2, level 3, when you're a level 1 character, even little goblins could kill you. An orc could probably kill you. Troll, run away. But as you gain levels, you got more confident, your character became more powerful. The things that bothered you at first no longer bothered you, right? So I think I've gone from level 1 to 2 right now, where I'm comfortable in front of the camera and I just want to go further. As I'm learning more about editing, as I'm learning more about studio equipment, as I'm learning more about, everything can feel, overwhelming. Now, it's neat because I have some cards in my Zettelkasten about feeling overwhelmed. Feeling overwhelmed can be caused by a lack of prioritization. And we can only do one thing at a time. No matter how much we would like to, pretend that we can do more things than one at a time, it's not possible. And this comes from the book, The One Thing by Gary Keller that I've already talked about. Failing to prioritize things makes everything feel urgent. And when everything feels urgent, everything feels equal. When in reality, that's not really the way it is. When we prioritize, we can actually prioritize one thing that will possibly eliminate the need to even do other things, or it can make things that we have to do easier if we prioritize one thing above another thing. I talk a lot about the why. I talk a lot about purpose. Purpose without priority is powerless. Now that comes directly from Keller. When we choose to prioritize something over another, I'm also saying I'm automatically not doing this other thing. In investing, we call this opportunity cost, where your money's tied up in this investment, so you can't just invest it in this other thing. So the same thing is true with time, our most precious resource that we have, the thing we can never get back. So I said I would make 30 videos at the beginning of this challenge, and I'm going to make 30 videos, Lord willing. Now, if I get sick or something, that changes things. But now I've been tempted throughout these first 15 days to stop multiple times. I have a history of starting things and not finishing them. And that is a habit that needs to go. I want to prove to myself that I am a person of my word. Let your yes be yes and your no be no, right? Sean Cannell, rhymes with channel. He started and runs Think Media Podcast. And I've been getting a lot of information from him. He talks about in there that what if we worked harder on our character than we did on our content? And that was basically what his whole message was about it. So this idea of leveling up from level 2 to 3, what does that mean? What do I want to prioritize over other things? Do I want to prioritize editing the best way possible? I don't think that's the best use of my time. I think actually I could have the best edited videos out there. If my message wasn't good, the best editing in the world is not going to fix those videos. And what I want to figure out is visual storytelling. Like, what makes a good story? Lisa Cron, if you have not heard of her, I would highly suggest you look her up. In the beginning of her book, Story Genius, she says that a lot of writers don't really know what story is. And I agree with her. I didn't know what a story was. So what she says is, story is about how the plot, the things that are happening, the external things that are happening, forces your protagonist, your character, to deal with their internal struggles, how they learn to overcome the misbeliefs that they have to then overcome the plot, the external things that are happening. And that's really what story is. So you're probably familiar with Carl Jung. He talks about the idea of a shadow self, the unconscious part of the personality, contains the weaknesses, the desires, the instincts, all these things that we hide from ourselves. And by hiding these things from ourselves, they cause all kinds of irrational behavior, all kinds of projections, internal conflicts. And when we start dealing, when we are honest with ourselves and we start dealing with those things, that's when we can grow. That's when we can progress. So I'm thinking a little bit more about what are my limiting beliefs. The one I already talked about, starting things and not finishing them. I have a lot of evidence that that's how I am. And pay attention to that. That's how I am. We have to stop telling ourselves that this is who we are. These are my tendencies, right? My tendencies are for that, or this was my past. Your experience doesn't mean that that's going to be your future. I have a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubts. Who am I to think that the content that I create can have impact on someone's life? There are a lot of gurus out there who you can tell by watching them that they're just faking it until they make it, right? You've heard that saying before, fake it until you make it. No, don't do that. Don't fake it until you make it. A lot of people talk about impostor syndrome, right? Like it's some disease that you have. But if you're feeling like you're an imposter, you're just not being completely honest with people, or you're trying to put yourself out there as an expert when you're really not, when you don't have the experience. You're trying to say you're a level 10 something when you're actually level 2, right? To get rid of the imposter syndrome, you have to know that I am learning as I go. I'm going to be asking a lot of questions. I'm going to say I don't know a lot. And I'm going to try to figure things out as I go. Jordan Peterson actually says that, you are more of what you don't know than you are of what you know, right? There is so much we don't know. There's so much I don't know. So what I'm going to try to do in these last 15 days is I'm going to focus. My number one priority is going to be figuring out, how does one tell a good story visually? In my estimation, I've gone from level 1 to level 2. Now I want to go from level 2 to level 3, right? And I'm focusing on story. I want to have impactful content, because I think if I have impactful content, I could have the worst editing in the world probably, and I wouldn't lose you. See, each video needs to tell a story. And each video needs to take you from one state of being to another state of being. Otherwise, it's just going to be forgetful. It's just going to be content that's, you watch once and it's gone. And I don't want that. I want to be the very best content creator for my niche, right? And I am naive enough to believe that that's possible. Maybe I haven't learned enough yet to get rid of that naivety. But, if you stick with me, I've got 61 subscribers right now. If you stick with me, you will get to see the whole process. If I crash and burn, I crash and burn. I'm naive enough to believe that if I work through the problems, if I work through the solutions, if I get 1% better every upload, then it's possible. So rather than take 15 days and learn all this so I can make one good video at the end of those 15 days, I'm going to take 15 days and I'm going to spend them focusing on learning how to tell a good story. That's the plan. It's day 15. We got 15 days to go. Keep seeking his face, and God bless.